Great start. If you've ever dislocated your shoulder or had any other type of shoulder injury, then I can guarantee that this video today is going to help you quite a bit. What usually happens when you hurt your shoulder? It hurts, then you go see a physio. The physio will tell you some brief anatomy of your shoulder, which you then forget. They show you some rotator cuff exercises, which you'll do for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And once you do the exercises for a few weeks, things start to feel a little bit better. You're out of the woods. Your resistance band just goes to the bottom of a drawer and you forget about it until the next time you hurt your shoulder. I can totally relate. It's a very normal thing that we do. We want to get ourselves out of pain just enough and then no further. But that's the reason why we keep getting hurt. I swear every single client that I go and show a rotator cuff exercise to, with the rotator cuff bands, they go, "Oh yeah, my physio showed me that." I say, "Have you been doing them?" "Oh no, yeah, I forgot about that." "Great. Okay, let's start doing them." So that's the norm for most of us. We will do just enough as we can to get ourselves out of pain and then we're on our way. But does it really feel better? Because as soon as we do a weird, awkward movement, we reach underneath to grab something, we reach behind us to put on our clothes, we reach overhead, we still feel that weird, catchy feeling. And then your brain reminds you, "Yeah, I did hurt my shoulder a little while ago. Maybe it's not any better." Or maybe I've just heard it and it's going to feel like this for the rest of my life. I am getting pretty old. Hold your horses. I am here to tell you that it does not need to be like that. Using old as an excuse is not going to fly around here. Trust me. Drop that one. As soon as we start to write ourselves off as old, we just start closing the window on the movements or the exercises that we are now allowed to do or that don't cause us pain. I'm sure there's tons of sports or activities that you've stopped because you've had a little bit of a twinge in the shoulder. I don't see a lot of people throwing things anymore. Down the beach, a lot of people, they have their little ball catapults for their dogs. They just a little slingshot, bang, so they don't have to send their shoulder into this throwing motion. And I get it because that's probably going to be the most painful thing for someone who has a niggly shoulder. But doesn't have to be like this. In this video today, I'm going to cover why basic rehab isn't going to be enough for strong shoulders. I'm then going to talk a little bit about my own journey, how I strengthened my own shoulder after 20 plus dislocations, and the exact progressions I would use to build yourselves stable and strong shoulders. So the very first time I dislocated my shoulder was when I was 19. I was in North America and I was snowboarding. I overshot a jump, went a little bit too far, landed wrong, landed on top of my shoulder, and boop, it dropped out. I had never dislocated anything before, and it felt very weird, and I was a little bit freaked out. I skied down to the bottom, called patrol, and they were actually a little bit, they were like, "Oh, this guy, he wouldn't have dislocated his shoulder," because I think I was so calm for some reason. So they then skied me down the hill in the little toboggan, the little banana boat. So I was laying down while they were skiing me down, took me into the hospital, and then the doctor popped my shoulder back in after about 45 minutes. They then gave me a script for some really strong American drugs and told me to rest. And I did rest for about 3 or 4 days until the next storm rolled through. And I decided I can move my shoulder around a little bit. I'm going to go snowboarding. And that's where it all went wrong. For the next 9 years, my shoulder came out probably about 20 times. Generally, it happened when I was snowboarding. Sometimes it happened when I was drunk and I put my hands over my head to pull myself up onto something. Then my least favorite time was when I was in a concert of Rise Against and someone bowled me over and I kind of got pinned and it popped out. That's when I started to think maybe I should do something about this. So every time I popped my shoulder out, I would do what the physio used to tell me, and I did my little rotator cuff exercises with the bands. And then I was thinking maybe I should start to do some sort of physical practice for myself. So that's when I jumped into a bit of yoga. And it was really great because I increased my overhead range a little bit. So I was getting a little bit more stretching through the shoulders, and it was good for my snowboarding to stretch through my legs and my hips after big days at the hill. But it wasn't really the complete picture of what I needed to strengthen my shoulders. There was a little bit of pushing strength in the yoga practice, but no kind of pulling strength whatsoever. And I just dismissed myself as being able to ever hold my hands above my head or pull myself up. That was just completely out of the question. It was just done. Like, my shoulder is wrecked and I'm never ever going to be able to do that for the rest of my life. This is the mindset that I had. And that's fine. Like, when you feel like that, that's all you got. So it wasn't until I actually stopped doing my back-to-back winter seasons, which lasted for 8 or 9 years, that I was in Peru, I was backpacking, and I seemed to have a lot of time on my hands for some reason. I guess because I was on holiday. And was looking at some stuff on YouTube, and they were talking about hanging and how you should be able to hang and you should be able to do this and this and this. So I took myself down to the beach and I put my hands over my head and I hung onto the bar for a little bit, and it was the worst. Like, the pain in my shoulder, it wasn't too intense until I started to try and lift my body weight off of the ground, and I couldn't even do it for a second. But I thought, well, this is pretty interesting. I should be able to do this. So from that day on, every day I was there, I went down and I hung for as long as I could. I worked my way up. I was doing 5-second holds, 10-second holds. Then I was starting to play with going like passive to active, a few different things like that. And then I continued this journey when I went back home to Australia. From there, I got myself a set of rings, and whenever I had a chance to hang off something, I would. I was that random bearded guy in the playground with no kids swinging off the monkey bars because I could. And by that time, I could do monkey bars. Like, yeah, to me, even to think back, where I would put my hand over my head, my shoulder would pop out, to now be able to swing from one arm, is crazy. It didn't even take as long as I would have thought. Like, granted, I know I am still in my early 30s, but that was a pretty awesome day for me when I got a full length of the monkey bars. So my shoulders were feeling pretty strong, and I went for 6 weeks back to the snow and was goofing around and doing whatever. They built this awesome little mini pipe. And I was like, oh, I do yoga. I'm a little bit flexible. I'm going to try and do hand plants, which I thought was like one of the coolest moves ever. And I got a few, and then one time I kind of over-rotated and I popped my shoulder back out. And this time it wouldn't go back in, which was kind of gross. But I saw this as a good thing. I was like, well, I've actually stabilized a little bit more around this joint, obviously, because it wasn't just going to go straight back in. So skied down to ski patrol, was going to ask them to do it, but I thought, well, I'm a remedial massage therapist. I have qualifications. So I thought I'd just put it back in myself. And I did, and it worked. Drove myself home in my manual. And then from that day on, I was like, okay, I'm still not out of the woods. So started off with the easy rotator cuff band stuff, and then I really hit it hard. And I used this stuff that I'm about to tell you in this video to really make sure my shoulders got super strong and super bulletproof. And now I feel awesome. So I don't have beef with physios. They are amazing. And if you've just gone and dislocated your shoulder, probably a good idea to go get it checked out by a physio. But their job is to get you out of pain as quick as possible and get you moving. But that is generally as far as they're going to get you, just out of pain. The thing is though, we shouldn't mistake pain-free for strong. A shoulder that is pain-free and is weak is just another shoulder waiting to get injured again. Because life is super random and will throw all kinds of crazy stuff at you all the time. You've got children, you want to go party, you want to just be a general larrikin. You want to make sure you have strong shoulders or you're going to get hurt. So once we're out of that first little section where we're out of pain, that is when the real work begins of us getting strong and healthy shoulders. Most people think about shoulder rehab is the muscles that are surrounding just the shoulder itself. So the rotator cuff muscles, these little muscles that attach into the humerus. But there are so many more muscles that are attaching into the shoulder joint. We've got our pecs, we've got the muscles at the back of our scapula, we've got our lats down the side here, and these are the things that get forgotten. So I'm going to cover a few things that I see that get neglected after most shoulder injuries. The first one being scapular stability. And this one isn't just a shoulder injury problem. A lot of the clients that I see that have issues with pain in their neck and shoulders almost always have trouble moving their scapulas around. I ask them to retract their scapula or bring them forward, and they just can't do it. It's like they have this thing that I've termed as scapnea. It's like this scapular apnea, this inability to do anything with their shoulder blade. So the shoulder blade itself, it's this foundation that the whole joint sits on. If I move my arm this much, my shoulder blade doesn't move. But as soon as I go up overhead to get this extra range, the shoulder blade is turning at the same time as that. So we need to strengthen these muscles that attach into that shoulder blade, as well as just the muscles that attach into the humerus. Muscles like the serratus anterior, the lower traps, rhomboids, all these sort of things that are going to be able to hold and get the scapula moving healthy. So if these muscles aren't firing correctly, it doesn't matter how strong your rotator cuff is, the shoulder isn't going to be able to function properly. The second is pulling strength. Rows, pull-ups, ring work. These are the movements that actually teach the muscles around the joint to hold the head of the humerus in the socket under load. Your rotator cuff muscles get trained far more effectively through loaded pulling movements than they ever would through isolated band work. The band activates them in isolation, but a pull-up teaches them to fire as part of a coordinated pattern, this whole movement happening here. That's a completely different thing. So the third is pushing strength, properly loading the pushing pattern. Push-ups, pressing movements, all that kind of stuff. So we can work on the front of the shoulder to be able to handle real force without the joint giving way. This sort of stuff is really going to help improve the serratus anterior. This is a big muscle that we want to strengthen here. It keeps the shoulder blade pinned against the rib cage as you push away. A really common cause of winging scapula is a weak serratus anterior. I actually had winging from both of my scapulas because of both my shoulder injuries. Oh yeah, I also broke my collarbone on my right hand side twice. So these are the three things that take you from being pain-free to being strong and stable. A shoulder that holds up in the gym is one thing, but a shoulder that can hold up in the real world where there's mosh pits and sports fields and wrestling with your kids, all kinds of this random stuff. This is where we want to be strong so we don't get injured. That is what we're aiming for. So, same principle as always. We're going to start where you are, not where you want to be. We're going to build you from the ground up. Start with these progressions first and then work to your own ability. Okay, internal, external rotation with our resistance bands. This is where we're going to start. We're all going to do it. Before you grab any band at the gym, most of them are way too thick. So you want something really light resistance. If the band is pulling you around or you can't control the movement or you're getting pain, it's probably way too heavy. So get yourself a light one. We want to pin your elbow to the side and keep it there. Sometimes I even get people to put like a water bottle or a rolled up towel or something like in between their elbow and their ribs. And so then they really have to pin there. So from here, we're just taking our hand across our body and out into the external rotation movement. We want to go 20 of these external rotation moves, making sure that we have this tension the whole way. If the tension goes out when you pull your hand in close to the band, then you need to take a little step out. You want to make sure it's tense the entire way. Perfect. So we want to go 20 on external rotation, and then we do the exact movement with the other arm, and we want to do internal rotation. So same principle applies. You pin the elbow, and we want to bring our hand this time towards our body. All right, so 20 each side, each arm. So internal, external, right and left. If you're doing this one and you feel lots of effort coming from your front deltoid and your pec, then stop for a little second. And we want to just like make sure we let everything relax at the front. Sometimes I like to put my hand in front of my shoulder here just to make sure that that's not working overtime. And then we make sure it's all good. All right, beautiful. We're now going to do a face pull with external rotation. So a typical face pull, you would be getting a band or a light cable or a heavy cable, depending on how strong you are, and you're pulling your hands about head height towards your face. With us, what we're going to do is we're going to keep our elbows about the height of our shoulders, and our hands are going to be at that same height, and then we're going to try and lift our hands up towards the ceiling, and we want to try and see if we can get our hands above our shoulders. So this whole movement here is a big external rotation move. While we're doing that, we want to make sure that we're hugging our shoulder blades together and we're holding our arms out nice and wide. And so while we're doing this, we're getting rotator cuff, we're getting our rhomboids, we're getting the back of our deltoids, all the oids, they're coming along for the ride. And so see how you go. Aim for 20 reps, couple sets of these. This is gonna fire you up a lot more than your traditional band work. Okay, so if there's no pain through any of those resistance band movements, we can now start on some of the fun stuff. So you're gonna need something to hang off. Rings, a swing at the park. You could get a towel around a tree. You could maybe even get a sheet in a door. I don't really recommend that. Maybe see about that. Essentially anything you can pull your body toward. The key is finding a position where you're supported, but your body weight is going through your shoulders. Before we even do a single row movement, I want you to do this first. From your hanging position, without bending your arms at all, we want to keep our body like a plank, and I want to see if you can retract your shoulder blades. So retraction means basically pulling them together. Imagine there's a pencil that you're trying to grab with your shoulder blades. You're going to hug them together, and then you're going to drop them all the way back out and let them like relax. Pull them back together, grab the pencil, and then drop them out. So that is a scapular row. From here, if we can do 15 of these, that'd be amazing. You want to do these every single time before you do any pulling movement. So if you're in the gym doing rows or lat pull downs or things like that, this is what we want to do because it's teaching the scaps and the muscles around the scapulars to do their job properly. All right, so we're going to take an upgrade from our row and we are going to be hanging. So I know not everyone has something to hang from at home, but if you want to take your shoulder health seriously, this has to become a staple. There is no way around it. You're going to need something to hang off. So if you don't have a bar at home, open up Google Maps, jump in the car, go find somewhere to hang. If the bar that you have is too high to reach comfortably, I want you to find something that you can stand on. You want to keep your feet supported, and then we're going to practice by slowly taking weight out of our lower body, out of our feet, and holding more of it into our hands and into our shoulders. You want to get yourself up to about 30 seconds in this assisted passive hang. Do that for a few sets before you do anything else. We'll just hang. Let the joints sort of decompress and all the surrounding muscles, let them wake up. Once we're comfortable there, then we can start to get more of an active hang. You want to still keep the feet on the ground for assistance, but now instead of just hanging, we're going to take that scapular row concept, the thing that we just learned where we hug our shoulder blades together, we're taking it in this vertical position. So no arm bend. We're not gonna try and do anything with our biceps, or we're not gonna bend our elbow. It's just the shoulder blades coming down towards our feet. So we wanna hug the shoulder blades together and down. And then we let it up, and then together and down. And so now we're doing a scapular pull-up, which is pretty cool. Same thing, this one's a bit harder, so we probably go for 10 reps, couple sets of that, every time we do any sort of pulling motion. So you'd think naturally the next progression would be a pull-up, and it could be, but that is not where we're going. We're going to train towards one arm hanging and eventually monkey bars. Oh my God, Joel, we're not trying to be ninja warriors. And yeah, that's fair enough, but why not have shoulders so strong that you could just do it anyway? My philosophy is simple. You might as well be as functionally strong as possible and never need it than be incapable of stuff when life asks for it. Life will ask for it eventually. So let's get to one arm hanging. If you can comfortably hang with two hands and do your scapular pull-ups, we start using assistance to practice one arm hanging. So this same progression, we want to keep both of our feet on the ground, and we can have a decent amount of weight in the ground, and then we'll just take one hand off of the bar and just see how it feels. We're just going to hold this shoulder into the joint as much as we can. Maybe gradually feel like we can drop it out a little bit and then pull it back in. And then we drop it out a little bit and then we pull it back in. So these are our one arm scapular pull-up movements. If I were you, I probably wouldn't ever try and do a one-armed scapular pull-up with our feet off the ground, especially if you've ever dislocated your shoulder. That could be pretty bad. So when we want to do hanging with one arms, we just want to keep the joint super stable. So we want to be like holding the shoulder blade in as much as we can. Like imagine you're just like, I'm never ever going to let my shoulder dislocate. That is the feeling you want to have. So before we start doing any sort of monkey bar stuff, you just want to get good at just hanging with one arm at a time, maybe 5 seconds, chuck it onto the other side, maybe go 5 seconds. All right, so the other movement pattern we need to address is pushing. And same as always, we need to start with the least aggressive version of the move. So naturally, wall push-up would be the place that we're gonna start. But before we do a single repetition of a wall push-up, I want you to do the pushing equivalent of a scapular row, which would be a scapular push-up, but we're gonna do it on the wall. So put your weight into your hands against the wall and we try to push our shoulder blades around the rib cage as if we're trying to like bring our pecs together and our shoulder blades are like kind of coming around the rib cage. And then what we want to do is we want to try and do that same thing with our row. We want to bring our shoulder blades back together and then we push it out and then we bring them back together. And so we should be able to kind of feel eventually this nice sort of smooth motion where our blades are just going front and back, coming back, hopefully no pain. And then we're going to do 20 of these. And then we're going to try with one arm. We're going to chuck one arm against the wall and then we're just going to push all the way out and pull all the way back. Push all the way out, pull all the way in. And if there's no pain with either of those, we can then take that same movement onto the ground. Sweet, so find yourself on the floor here and we're going to do that on hands and knees. And so pushing away, pulling back, pushing away, pulling back. And we'll do 10 reps here. Everything feels nice and good. Then what we can do is we can make the load a little bit heavier and come into a full plank position. So now, keep doing that movement. We have a completely full plank, so a lot more weight is being pushed through our shoulders here, but we're still keeping them in control. Nice. If that is feeling all good, no pain, then we can make it a little bit harder. So we're going to take our feet up onto a bench, a box, a chair, anything that can get us higher into this pike-like position. The increased angle is going to make it harder for our shoulders. And so exactly the same concept, but now we have this different angle. So it's not just front and back. It's not just like similar to the row. It's more like we're doing closer to like a handstand scapular push-up type deal. So we have to change the orientation of where the shoulders are going, but you'll figure it out. It's like we're trying to bring our shoulder blades back down into our back pockets a little bit more. All right, so eventually the goal is to get strong enough in this pushing pattern that you can take your entire body weight onto your hands. So if you can already handstand, try doing scapular push-ups in a wall handstand. If you can't handstand, I can teach you in another video, but not right now. If you can handstand and you're up against the wall, exactly the same thing. We just want to try and push our body weight away from us and then kind of like let it drop in. Push the shoulder blades down towards the ground and then let them drop back up. If you can go for 10, that'd be amazing. Be safe. All right, then we have some single arm drills. We have a modified version of a Turkish get-up. So you don't need a kettlebell, a dumbbell would work, even a heavy water bottle. The whole point of this movement is keeping the shoulder stable and active while we're pushing away from you the whole time. So we start laying on the floor. The hand that's holding the weight goes directly above your head. Arm is straight and it's pushing up towards the ceiling. That same leg stays bent and the other leg goes long. The free arm goes out beside you for support. From here, we want to use our core to roll up onto our elbow and then up onto our hand. We're going to push up off that hand to get ourselves upright, and we're going to control the whole thing back down the same way that we came up. We want to be slow and deliberate the whole way through. And so through this movement, we really want to focus on pushing the shoulder that's holding the weight, the kettlebell, the water bottle, up and away from us. And we want to keep our gaze, our eyes up towards that hand the whole time. See if we can go 10 reps on each side that we have. Then we have quite a dynamic pushing movement, and it's probably one of the most amazing movements that I can think of. And it's almost like the pushing equivalent of monkey bars, but then I was thinking that that would actually be handstand walk, and we're not doing that. So what we're doing is going to be a crawl, because it requires you to stay solid, active and solid through one shoulder at a time, which is exactly the kind of real world strength that we're trying to build towards. I've actually made a full video breaking down the progression of the crawl. So if you want to check that one out, the link is above and I'll put it at the end of the video. Look, if you've been living with a shoulder that just isn't quite right, it catches, it gives out, it feels unstable, it doesn't have to stay like that. It is not just a byproduct of getting old. I dislocated mine over 20 times. I thought stretching would fix it. I thought resting it would fix it. But it wasn't until I started loading it in the exact ways that I showed you in this video until it started actually getting strong. So the first thing you need to do is go down into that bottom drawer with the batteries and the hammers and all kinds of crazy stuff. Find your resistance band. And once you have your band, then maybe you just start off for the first week with the band progressions. Then when week 2 comes, maybe start to add in some of the second round stuff. Then the third round. Because if you just go and you just go hammer and tongs on all the things in the first week, and then the next week you've got like a bit of an extra niggly shoulder, probably not the right way to go about it. You want to go slow, steady, consistent over time. Because the longer you can do this type of stuff, the more it's going to stick and make your shoulders strong. And the quicker you give your shoulder that stimulus, the better off and the stronger that it's going to feel. Hopefully those ones help you. If you want to get more into the crawling, then jump into the video up above where I'll break it down fully for you. All right, see you in the next one.